Today I'm going to be talking about the writing paper. On your French, German or Spanish higher GCSE writing paper, you have 3 tasks. The 90-word essay, 150-word essay, and then your translation into German. I'm going to focus today on the 90-word essay. That is the hardest task on the foundation level. It's exactly the same that they get as you're going to get as the easiest task on the higher paper. The fact that you're doing the higher paper means that you feel comfortable doing the 90-word essay. But in order to make sure that you get that 8 or 9, you must score an absolute full top mark for your 90-word essay, which should be easy to do, but you just must remember some very, very key things, and they all lie within the mark scheme and also within the way that the examiner is going to be marking you. And I'm going to tell you exactly what that is. Now, when I say the word mark scheme to my students, their eyes usually glaze over and they just sigh a poor little sigh of death because they can't really ever get their head around it. But believe me, it's not as complicated or intimidating as it seems. And I'm going to break it down so that you know exactly what you need to do during the exam and how to revise for that. Because even students that are normally considered only at a 6 or 7, when they follow these tips, are in fact able to access the 8. Sometimes, let's stick with the 8, because in the end, it is a formula, and the examiner is looking for certain things. If you can give them those things, if you understand what is in the mark scheme and in the examiner's code, then you will be able to produce the work that they're looking for the top marks. So let's get started. So first of all, what is easy about the 90-word essay? It has 4 clear bullet points. The bullet points are already in the tenses that they want you to answer. They only want 2 opinions for you to access the top marks. And when they talk about complexity and complex language, remember, it's going to be much easier for you to produce that level of complexity. All right, that's what's easy about it. So how does the examiner approach marking your essay? Well, they start at the lowest level and they work their way up, and they're trying to match the description of each level with what you have written. Once they pick the level, they're going to see, is this more like the top end or is it more like the bottom end? This is how they're going to pick whether they're going to give you a mark at the top or the bottom of that particular level. So let's have a look at the mark scheme. So you are going to get up to 10 marks for content, and you're going to get up to 6 marks for quality of language. So have a look here at content. So to score in the top band for content, it says a very good response conveying all aspects of the task. All aspects of the task means you must answer each bullet point. So you don't have to answer equal amounts for each bullet point, but you must address each bullet point. If you miss one bullet point, remember the top marks that you could get would be 6 out of 10. So you lose significant amount of marks if you misunderstand one of the bullet points and don't properly answer it. Henceforth, make absolutely sure you know what the bullet point means so that you are answering it. Okay? This is why it's also good not just to write one little sentence for one of them, but to try and write 2, because in case you get it slightly wrong, hopefully your second sentence can count towards that bullet point and you won't be penalized and lose 4 full marks. My number 1 thing is answer the bullet points in order. You want to make it for the examiner as easy as possible. Don't make the examiner chase through your essay to see whether you have answered all 3 bullet points. They're in a hurry. Next thing, it says communication is clear, and if you look down a level, it says mostly clear but occasional lapses. You must not have any lapses. It must be clear at all times. Do not overcomplicate things for your 90-word essay. Do not write things that you're not 100% sure make sense. If you've written something, you got yourself into a twist because the vowel, the word order, everything, cross it out neatly and start again. See if maybe you just want to link it with a simple word, because that way you can be absolutely sure that it is clear. That needs to be, because once there are lapses in clarity, you will no longer be able to access the marks in that top band. So next you can see here it says conveys a lot of information, and then one level down, quite a lot. Now, how do you know what a lot of information is? Two things. First of all, word count. If it is a 90-word essay and you've written significantly less than 90 words, then that is not a lot of information. Now, the examiner isn't going to count the words, but believe me, I'm used to reading so many essays. You get a very good feeling of if something is a lot or if there is actually maybe 1 or 2 sentences missing. So if you're year 10 now or at the beginning of year 11, absolutely get into the habit. Every time you write an essay, 90 words or 150 words, do a word count and write down how many words that is. You must get used to seeing in your own handwriting how much 90 words looks like, how much 150 words looks like. And in your exam, when you have time at the end, do a word count. And if you are significantly over it, for example, for the 90-word essay, you find out you've written 120 words. Go through that essay carefully and literally with a ruler, cross out the sentences that you are not 100% sure of. Remember, clarity, so that you don't get penalized for writing anything that is not correct. It's not just word count, right? It's not just the words, it's also the ideas that are information. So a lot of information also means a lot of ideas. Some students write 100 words, but they basically only have one idea that they keep repeating. That is not a lot of information. Let me give you an example. I have a couple of students who have this habit of writing the positive and the negative of the same thing, and that is not providing lots of information. So for example, if the task was to ask you, it's asking you, what did you like doing in the past, what do you do now, and what are you planning to do in the future? And this is the answer. In the past, I ate lots of pizza and I played football. Now I don't eat pizza and I don't play football. Next year, I will eat chips and I will play tennis. You have provided 3 different tenses, and you have varied it slightly by changing football to tennis in the last example. But you have not really provided a lot of information. You've only used 2 verbs. You do not want to repeat anything, and I repeat, do not repeat anything. I'm going to pick up on that point again in a minute, because it also matters for quality of language, which is where you get those other 6 marks. But let me just finish on content. So here's the last thing. It says opinions are expressed. Note that it's plural. If you only have one opinion, then the top mark you can get is 6. Yeah? So instead of 9 or 10 marks, you can only access 5 or 6 if you only have one opinion. I generally find that people who do the higher paper don't have a problem with that, because you're used to saying, weil das sehr interessant ist, or you say, ich finde das sehr interessant. You normally got into the habit of adding opinions to things, but you must have 2 opinions minimum to get the top band. Let's look at quality of language, which is where you get those other 6 marks. The first thing you can see, it says variety of vocabulary used. And now look at a level down. 3 to 4 marks is some variety. Do not repeat yourself. That is what variety is. And the moment I see somebody repeating, sehr, very, very, very nice, very nice, very nice, very cool, immediately you will not be able to access that top mark, because you're boring the examiner. At the end of the exam, check for repetition. Every time you see very, for example, cross it out and write quite, extremely, totally. Change your qualifiers. The same for the quality of adjectives. You know, you must learn a good variety of adjectives, both positive and negative, in order to never repeat yourself in an essay. I'm going to do another video about that, about opinions, and I'm going to give you the 5 most impressive necessary adjectives that you absolutely need to learn and include in every single one of your essays. Different video on that. All right, let's go. Next is complex structures are attempted. So what are complex structures? So first of all, your tenses are complex structures. So you must make sure that you get your tenses right. Tenses are good intensifiers. They list time phrases, often, sometimes, regularly, any words like that, 3 times a month. Those are time phrases that are considered as complex. Connectives, so use not just and, but also use but. Yeah, so different kinds of connectives. And then they're talking about clauses and infinitive constructions. Now again, I'm going to talk about that for the 150-word essay because that's where it really matters. For the 90-word essay, complex structures are much simpler. You know, a few becauses in there, those are already going to be enough for you to get the top marks there. 3 time phrases, successful. And then if you look down a level, it says 2 time phrases, successful. That means that you messed up on either your future or your past tense, or you did not conjugate your present tense correctly. So absolutely make sure that you have 3 perfect tenses. You must get your tenses right. That is the one and only thing that that drags most of my students down. You know, if they lose marks on a 90-word essay, it's because they made some mistake on the tenses. And then here it says the accuracy of language is the next point that they're going to be looking for. And here you see minor errors. And then for 3 to 4, when there are more errors, it says more accurate than inaccurate. They're quite strict on the error side. It must be more accurate still than inaccurate. So you're allowed some minor errors and still get top marks. Now minor errors are things like, so instead of mine, meine, meiner, if you have those endings wrong, those are considered minor errors because the communication is not impeded. That means if you say mein Familie, I know exactly what you mean, even though you didn't say meine Familie. But the thing that's considered major errors have all to do with the verbs. So if you get your tenses wrong, and if you get the verb endings wrong for using different people, so for example, if you're talking about your brother or your mother, instead of saying fährt, you're going to say fahre. Or instead of saying wir essen, you say wir isst. If you get those endings wrong, those are considered major errors, and they are going to have an impact on what band they are going to be able to give you marks for. So after accuracy, is the intended meaning always clear? And then again, look down one thing. It says usually clear, nearly always clear. You know, accuracy again is very important for this essay. More important than showing off some fancy stuff. Okay, that's my main takeaway. You don't need to go and write things that you're not 100% sure of, trying to show off your conditional, different kinds of subclauses. This is not the place to do it. Accuracy, clarity, that's where you're going to get the top marks for it. So let's put all this into practice. I have put a 90-word essay task into the description below. I want you to go and do that essay for me using all the tips that I've given you in this video. Before you start, I want you to do the following. I want you to translate the 4 bullet points into English. I want you to write down in German the key words that you're going to need to answer each bullet point. I want you to list 4 brilliant adjectives with intensifiers that are not repeating each other. So 4 different ones for each. And I want you to write those down. I want you to write down 3 time phrases that you're going to include in there for me. And then I'm going to ask you to write down my father, my brother, or my sister. You choose one of them because I want you to also talk about one other person, or you could use wir, we. Okay, this only works for my German students. You write the essay, you submit it to me, I'm going to give you feedback. So until then, stay safe and stay smart.